Good morning, good afternoon, good evening across the country, around the world. Welcome back to Planet Coaster WestCOT. Continuing our work on our Bangkok, Thailand section of the World Showcase area, our second international area here. We're looking at the temple. To the left, of course, is the Rapids Ride Station. To the right is the hybrid steel coaster station building. We're going to work on the left. We're going to work on the Rapids Ride today. It was interesting to work on that. It was interesting to do a lot of things I do in this episode and the next one. I actually learned a lot in the game by doing this because I actually had to force myself to do a lot of terraforming. Even though a lot of it's frustrating still, I did a lot of terraforming. Anyway, we jump into a really quick little time lapse because I'm moving around and looking at things and kind of getting a plan. And then we come to a straight piece here where it's running in real time. We've only used half the map, actually a little less than half the map. I was actually really surprised at this. And to the left of where the temple is and behind anti-gravity is where the Rapids Ride and next episode, the coaster, are going to go. So I was actually pretty pleased with the amount of space I still had left to do things. Yeah, it was a pleasant surprise. I thought I was going to run out of space and only be able to do Spain, Bangkok, and then San Diego, California, USA, because I thought I would run out of space. Anyway, like I said, terraforming. Major terraforming. I knew I wanted this area to not be as big, or at least not the one giant hill / mountain that it is. Unfortunately, you can only edit the terrain that is inside your park. You can't edit the terrain past the line. In, what's it called? In, I know I go back to this every so often. In Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, if you edited the terrain going up to the edge, it would also edit the terrain past the edge, so it would kind of average out, or it would level off, and it would be cooperative. Unfortunately, with Planet Coaster, it doesn't do that. I'm stuck with that terrain level over there. I didn't really want that big crazy wall of terrain in the background, so we end up making it a mountain, but not as much. It's different. It's a little more intricate. Or it was a little more interesting, I think. Anyway, working on the Rapids Ride, had some problems, had to change some settings to get the, to turn off collisions. Apparently I had, yes, detect collisions. I thought I had turned it to say, no, I don't care about collisions. Anyway, working on the Rapids Ride, starting in the back. So, the name of this Rapids Ride, I don't add it until the very end, even though it's been in my head for a while, is Hidden River Rapids. Part of that is that there's a good chunk of this coaster that is inside a cave, or a few different cave sections, and it kind of goes alongside this hidden river that's there. Yeah, that's mostly at the second half, or the last third, I guess. But my thought was, oh, there's a river out front, in front of the temple. This is the rest of that river. It's actually underwater, and then it pops out somewhere with like a waterfall or whatever, and that's where the river comes from. It's underground, and we more or less achieved that. That was one of the terraforming headaches of this episode. Anyway, what you see there was just kind of a test run to see how it behaved. Did it accelerate on a curved slope like that? And it does. So it's all right. Unfortunately, I'm not the best coaster builder. I'm not the best anything builder. And this isn't necessarily. It actually isn't a terribly exciting Rapids Ride. I mean, like Silverette hasn't yet done a Rapids Ride tips and tricks and how to maximize your things, because he hasn't. I'm not sure if there really is. Rapids Rides are kind of hit or miss. I've only been on a few, and honestly the best one I think is still Grizzly River Run at Disney California Adventure. It's got lots of elements. It's got at least 3 drops. You will get wet. You may get soaked. It's a good coaster. Good Rapids Ride that is good, like kind of all arounder. Sadly, Disney's other Rapids Ride, at least that I know of in Walt Disney World, the Animal Kingdom, the Cali Rapids, is really, really lame. There's like 1 drop. You don't get wet. Oh, I'm sorry. You get wet because there's little guns toward the end, right before the turntable, that squirt you with water from both sides. That's really the only reason you get wet. And it's kind of annoying that that's the only reason you get wet. Anyway, we're building the coaster, or I keep saying coaster, the Rapids out this way. This ends up having a total of 3, there's the third one, 3 lift hills to just keep the Rapids Ride going. I think Grizzly, there's 2, or is there just the 1? I can't remember now. There's 3 big drops. 2 drops? 3 drops. It's been a while since I've been on it. I don't go over to that section of the park all that often either. I'm more on the Hollywoodland side. Anyway, that's the Rapids ride. It's mostly complete. There's a few sections that are exciting. There are a few that are just, I think at this iteration, that are just so nauseating because it's such a hard lateral jerk that it detracts from the excitement because the nausea factor is so high. Here we go, heat maps. Yeah, so excitement, not that big. I think down in there? Nope. Oh, I think it was at this iteration. There we go, steeper drop. This iteration, that right-hand turn, or that sharp right turn there, yeah. It's such a lateral motion that it kicks up the nausea factor and it detracts from the excitement because it's that jarring. Yeah. Again, I'm not sure if there's other tricks or tips or track elements even that I'm missing. I think I used everything. I used to the right offset, left offset, rapid for both. I did as much as I could. Yeah, so I don't know. Oh, here we go. Changing that part because that was too much. Giving it kind of a proper splashdown area there. And then we connect up to the rest of it and the, the part that's in the caves and the quote, hidden rivers section. I think that's about it as far as changes to the track layout. I think it ends up being like a 4 point something or a 5.4. It's not much. It's not great, but it's enough to generate a full queue, because once I play with it in an episode or two, once I get the right number of rafts on it and things like that, it's popular. It's got a full queue. It doesn't seem to be like a terribly hard thing in this game. Plus the fact that it's new is good. And honestly, I think anything above a 5 is positive. Sorry, I just thumped my little wrist rest in front of my keyboard. That was this. There we go. Oh, yep. Quick little on board. You can see, ooh, rapids, jiggle, 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 jiggle. It's all right. It's spinny, spinny, spinny. It's not too bad. I think it's, what, a 3-minute ride? No, it's like a 4-minute ride, which is decent. A Grizzly River run is probably a good 4 or 5 minutes. It's not over all that quickly. All right, so the rapids ride is done, and here is where I was doing the continuation of the river. And I thought, okay, you know what? Let's make it actually like a cave that's here, and we'll just extend this river way back. And in theory, that's good, except that from the rapids ride, you can't really see that river. It's too low. Eventually, I end up just saying screw it, and it ends up going where it goes, because I didn't really have any other recourse. This was where I got into kind of the terraforming headaches of this episode. The mountain stuff, it's actually not too bad. This was a part that I spent a very long time on. I mean, initially, I probably should have just left it the way it is right about... Wait for it. Should have left the river the way it is. Come on. Right about there. Because it's there, it's next to the raft. You and the guests, I think they would hear it, maybe they would see it. I know it's there. But instead, I said, you know what? Let's try to raise it up. But here's where I ran into a whole plethora of headaches, because you can only do so much of the terrain around a coaster. Oh, I'm sorry, around a track. This is behaving like a coaster track in the way that it does stuff. So it was quite annoying. And actually looking at it, I think that water level right there is actually higher than I get it at other times. I tried to kind of do this in little sections and tried to compartmentalize it, but the way that the water level says, yes, you can put this water level up this high, or no, you can't, is a smidgen confusing and not all that wonderfully cooperative. So there you see me save. I usually don't show that, but I was going to delete some of the track because I figured, okay, you know what? Let's try this and seeing what happens when we auto-tunnel. And actually it works fairly well at sometimes. Other times it isn't terribly cooperative. So when you auto-tunnel, it really just channels through the ground like that. So you get the ground up at the level you want it. And I thought, okay, this is good. I can work with this. I can make this happen. Unfortunately, it still wouldn't let me get the water level all the way up there, even though, to the best of my knowledge, everything else was up and solid. So whether it needs like a certain amount of space between the two or what, I don't know. But the water level thing was quite the frustration, quite the vexation. And I end up going through and doing the same thing with all the track, excuse me, all the track here that is exposed to the riverside like that. Unfortunately, I'm afraid it might have been a venture in vain, because it just doesn't, it ends up the water level didn't really change, or I can't get the water level to do anything else. And for some reason here, it wasn't happy auto tunneling through that section. It just didn't want to. It didn't like it. It was being stupid. So eventually, I think I turn auto tunnel off. There, yeah, with auto tunnel off, it just digs through that, and it actually just places it through the ground. So it wasn't 100% correct, but it did the job. It was a little screwy. And then here again, continuing that leveling out, and then we auto tunnel or not, and build the track back out, filling in that gap. There we go. Boop, boop, and boop. And we get, yeah. So it looks like the ground, the terrain, is just about level with the coaster. And you would think you could put the water level at that level. But it didn't have it. It wasn't being my friend. It didn't want to do it. But here I thought, let's try it like this. No, that looks stupid. So I end up deleting all of those pieces and then raising the whole bit. There we go, out to there like that. Maybe this is where I had problems too, but it was such a headache to get the water level to do kind of what I wanted it to. Never really did. And I forgot to make that rapidy so that it was kind of jolting and exciting. So we go back and replace that track. There we go. And again, water level's not where I would like it. It's actually, I think, might even be lower there than it is in the section before it. And I end up trying to place lights, trying to find out where the gaps are, trying to find where things are weird. Because to me, it looks like there's plenty of space. Like there should be enough height and wallage of the terrain to let me close or let me raise the water level. Whatever that issue was, I don't know. And there's no tools, there's no hints, there's no guides, there's nothing that says obstructed, impossible, not working. It's nothing that highlights and sends you to the thing that is the obstruction, that is the problem. Ever. It like never shows you that. So you're kind of stuck with just trying to figure out what's going on with the terrain. And granted, this is probably one of the more complex things you can do with terrain and the water level, being in this cave with a weird shape under other layers of ground and a ride, things like that. And maybe that's the problem. Maybe the cave roof isn't high enough. Maybe there is maybe there is a mandatory ceiling between the water level and the ceiling. Something like that. Anyway, at this point, I was placing lights everywhere trying to find out where the issue was. And there was this one section here that the light did not want to reflect on, like, quote, correctly. So maybe that's what part of the problem is. I don't know. It just wasn't cooperating. And eventually I said, you know what? Screw it. It's not going to get any better. I'm not going to find a hole. I'm not going to fix it. It's not going to... I tried one more thing there. It's not going to get any better as the thing slows down. Yeah, so I just kind of said, all right, that's it. I'm done with it. I don't need to play with it anymore. And then we start deleting all the lights, because who wants white lights in a, like, underwater tunnel type thing? Yeah, delete all these, and it gets nice and creepy and dark in here. That's just fine. There are a few that I'd placed before, and the wall or the terrain moved around, or they didn't move with the terrain, like this one. Come on, there we go. And there's a few that got hidden in the ground. That took a bit to... Whoop, don't select everything. That took a bit to get rid of them. I think there was one over here, or two over here, that got stuck in the terrain. And one more. There we go. Now the tunnel is completely dark and taken care of. Again, I probably should have just left it the way it was at the very beginning, because that was probably the easiest way to do it. But whatever. It was a learning experience. That's always a good thing, right? So here I wanted to light the cave, the water tunnel, or the river cave, river, the river, underground river, underwater river. Sure. And I thought, okay, these will do some nice lighting. Then they light up the cave, but it doesn't reflect off of the ground, or I'm sorry, off of the water. Apparently the only thing that reflects off of the water is actually sunlight. So yeah, that was a little bit annoying. But it I think it'll look okay when you go to ride it, and even if you can't see the river all that well, I know it's there. If anybody ever downloads this park, you'll know it's there. You'll be able to see it if you do like a fly through instead of just a ride through. Right, so here we start closing up the tunnels and the caves for the river, the hidden river. And this is where I think this point, a little bit here, more so I think on the next cave was when I was really starting to feel a little more comfortable with the at least with the pull tool, with the terrain tool, to know how to close it. Yeah, this part over here, this is the big cave. This is like, to me, it reminds me of, not that I ever went on it, but like Journey Through Nature's Wonderland or Rainbow Ridge, like the first caves on Big Thunder Mountain where you have like the bats and the drippy water and the psychedelic colored water down there. That's kind of what this reminded me of. Or I guess what is it? There's like there's a part on the Knott's Berry Farm mine ride that's also like that, where it's like all glorious and musical and stuff like that. But yeah, here, this part, this is the entrance to kind of the big cave. And here I'm using the terrain tools to kind of shape, in effect, the show building, or the show scene. I use the walls to really kind of try to frame the cave. And I like it. It opens, it's pretty big inside. It's got texture. To me, it kind of reminds me of like stalactites and stalagmites. Maybe just stalactites because there are no mites on the ground. But it looks, I think it looks good. I think it looks cool. I like it. It ends up being closed in just the way that I wanted it to be. And again, this is where I really felt like I was getting comfortable with the terrain tools. It's tedious and it takes a little time, but to do kind of minimal work like that, that's when I was feeling like, all right, I can do this. I can make this happen. Like, I don't know how some people use the terrain tools to bloody sculpt a character. Like, I think I saw one of like Wile E. Coyote, or there's the one even in the stock game with the that giant rock creature that like is crashing through the gate, but they freeze it in time, and the MUTTs are holding it in place. I couldn't do that, but I can do this. I can do caves. Yeah, I really liked the size of this. Closes up a little bit just so you can't see the daylight from too far away. Whoa, camera's being screwy. Oh yeah, and the camera does not terribly like being inside a cave. I had lots of camera issues with caves, both this episode and the next, where I work on the coaster. And here's closing up this little tunnel here, and that's when I realized, oh, those supports are sticking through, and that looks horrible. So I think it's at this point. Yeah, here's where I think I'm going to click on the ride. Yeah, there we go. Get rid of supports. Delete. Can I just one section? Nope, still there. Both sections. Okay. And that ends up being supported by the ground anyway, so it's not a big deal. But yeah, those supports were just a bit much. So that's the kind of the more artistic cave sections that I wanted to have done. Next was to put another piece of it in the cave, and also to kind of round out this mountain. Whoa! And actually, that's a slope I stay with. Yeah. I forget what that's called. Is it the slope school or flatten to angle or flatten to that point thing? It's actually fairly useful when it comes to like building mountains and building hills and things. Maybe not as big, but I use this a lot to get kind of the general shape that I want for this hill. Yeah, it works out pretty well. Oh yeah, I build this kind of into the hill so it kind of slopes with, or the terrain kind of slopes with that downward spiral there. And I like the way that turned out. Here we go. Close up some caves. Right here. So this ends up being inside a cave. So you can see I've been closing the actual track itself, but that little worm of a cave inside is inside a giant open cave. It's kind of funny. It's kind of funny when it's done. The way that there's just a giant opening inside there. It's hard to see, but you can catch for a second there. And then over here, yeah, I wanted to kind of hug the terrain right up against these things. Yes. Good. And same thing over here with the drop. And it was a little screwy working with it against the edge, because it would pull on the edge and not really where you wanted it to pull. But I ended up making it work. The soften tool, the roughen tool, kind of leveling things out, getting it to do what I want it to do. It's okay. I get rid of that. Nope. I used the wrong tool. I thought that was a smooth tool. It was a rough tool. I ended up getting rid of that really sharp. I mean, the angle is still there, but as a sharp angle, it kind of blends a little bit more. Yeah. The terrain tools don't always do what you want them to do, but it gets the idea across. And here I was kind of creating a wall with the terrain that kind of hides the next drop from the other side on that lift hill. Disney does that a lot on their current rides like Splash Mountain, Big Thunder Mountain, and whatnot. They will hide that next drop, even though you can probably hear it or you can catch a glimpse of it. You can't see the whole thing until you are right up on it. And that's what I was doing with this. Yeah, I put like a little lake pond thing down there in that little splash down zone. And then it was time to close up the mountain over here. At this point, I was kind of like, crap, do I close it up? What happens with the coaster? What do we do? I said, let's just close it up. And I was going to leave it for that night. I ended up going back and working on the coaster the next day, I think. Yeah, so we ended up terraining this up and closing it up. And it was kind of hard to find the right angle to get these things to do their thing. There, I think I like that one. Yeah. There we go. Yeah, it's not always easy to find a matching angle that makes things work, but using that to close it up and then you smooth or whatever, and you get the shape you want. Still a little rough, but it gives you the basic shape, like I said, and that's all you need. I end up doing more work to the terrain once the coaster is in. I have to do more still to fine-tune things and scenic things, to put some trees, put some rocks and whatnot. But there it is, the Rapids ride, Hidden River Rapids. I think I'm going to change the name on the text there in just a moment. There it is, yeah, Hidden River Rapids. I can't read it because it's too small on my screen, but the excitement rating is decent. What is that, 4.41, I think? It's okay. Yeah, that's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. If you hit subscribe, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, pass the word. I will catch you later.